Hey guys, tonight we're not just going back in time, we're going to court. We're journeying thousands of years to the banks of the Nile, to a civilization that gave us pyramids, pharaohs, and a cosmic sense of order so perfect, so divinely balanced, it was supposed to last for eternity. That order had a name, Marat. It was truth, justice, and the unwavering rhythm of the universe, symbolized by a single delicate feather. It's the image we all have in our heads, a society governed by divine harmony, where every action was weighed on a cosmic scale, and justice was as certain as the rising sun. But behind the golden scales and the serene gaze of the gods lies a much grittier, much more human reality. Today, we're not just asking, what would happen if you lived a day in ancient Egypt? We're asking, what happens when that divine system of justice turns its gaze on you? Because, let me tell you, when the weight of the gods comes crashing down into your mud brick hut, it's not a feather you'll be feeling, it's a sledgehammer. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Welcome to ancient Egypt, land of divine law, human jealousy, and the kind of justice that's decided long before you even open your mouth. You think you understand order. You've been taught it your whole life. Maat isn't just a goddess with a feather on her head. It's the invisible architecture of your world. It's why the Nile floods on time, why the sun rises, why the pharaoh reigns. It's a spiritual guarantee that the universe is fair, that good is rewarded and evil is punished. Every morning, you make a small offering, a whispered prayer to keep yourself on the right side of that cosmic spreadsheet. You live a simple life. You farm your small plot of land. You pay your grain tax. You keep your head down. You are a tiny, insignificant cog in a vast divine machine, and your only job is not to break it. And then, one morning, the machine breaks you. It doesn't start with a divine omen or a crack in the sky. It starts with a shout. It's your neighbor, Mena, his face a mask of practiced outrage, pointing a trembling finger at you from across the dusty path that separates your fields. He's screaming that you, in the dead of night, snuck into his silo and stole a sack of his barley, a whole sack, the one he was saving for the planting season. You didn't do it. You know you didn't. You were asleep on your reed mat, exhausted from a day spent wrestling with the shaduf to water your own thirsty crops. But the truth doesn't matter right now. What matters is the accusation. In a village of a few hundred people, where reputation is the only currency that truly counts, an accusation is a verdict in itself. Suddenly, the silent, orderly world you trusted has turned into a theater, and you are the unwilling star. Other villagers poke their heads out of their huts, their faces a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. They've known you your whole life, but they've also known Mena. And in a world where a bad harvest can mean starvation, the theft of grain isn't a petty crime, it's a declaration of war. There are no police to call, no detectives to investigate. Justice in your village is swift, personal, and brutally public. Mena doesn't file a report. He grabs your arm, his calloused fingers digging into your skin, and hauls you toward the center of the village. He's yelling for the village elder, the local official who acts as judge, jury, and often executioner of social standing. You try to protest, to explain that Mena's harvest was poor this year, while yours was merely adequate, that his jealousy has been festering for weeks. But your words are lost in the rising tide of public spectacle. You're no longer a farmer, you're a thief. The official, a weary man named Pepe, who has seen this drama play out 1,000 times, sits on a low stool in the shade of a sycamore tree. He listens, his face impassive, as Mena lays out his case with the passion of a seasoned performer. He describes the empty space in his silo, the tracks he claims lead to your hut, the way you've been avoiding his gaze all week. It's all lies, woven together with just enough circumstantial detail to sound plausible. Then, it's your turn. You stand there, dust clinging to your tunic, the eyes of your entire world burning into you. You have no lawyer, you have no evidence, because how can you prove you were asleep? Your only defense is your word, your honor. You swear an oath, not on a book, but to the gods themselves. You call upon Re, Horus, and even the local crocodile deity to witness your innocence. You declare that if you are lying, may your crops wither, may your children fall sick, may your heart be heavier than the feather of Mayet when you finally face the great judgment. This is the peak of Egyptian jurisprudence for someone like you, a sacred oath. In theory, it should be enough to lie after invoking the gods, is to risk not just earthly punishment, but eternal damnation. But Pepe has heard 100 desperate oaths. He looks from your earnest, terrified face to Mena's confident glare. He doesn't have facts. He has two conflicting stories, so he does what officials have always done. He seeks a compromise that will restore order, not necessarily find the truth. He declares that since there is no proof, you will not be flogged or imprisoned. However, to restore the peace and appease your neighbor, you will pay Mena half the value of the missing sack of barley. It's not a sentence based on guilt. It's a social tax, a fine for being accused. You stand there, stunned. You are innocent, yet you are being punished. You've lost grain you don't have, and more importantly, you've lost face. The whispers of your neighbors will follow you for months. Every time someone's tool goes missing, their eyes will flick to you. The divine order of Maten, that beautiful, perfect system, has just been twisted into a weapon of petty human envy, and you were its target. As you walk away, the weight of the fine settling in your gut, you realize a terrifying truth. Justice in ancient Egypt isn't about what you did, it's about who can shout the loudest, and your voice was just a whisper. The fine is a death sentence, in slow motion, half a sack of barley. You don't have it. Your own silo is barely full enough to get your family through to the next harvest. Pleading with the official is useless. His verdict is final, designed to quell the dispute, not to bankrupt you, but the outcome is the same. There's only one option. You have to go to the market. You have to trade something. The market isn't the neat, orderly place of tomb paintings with smiling merchants and tidy stalls. It's a swirling vortex of humanity, a chaotic, deafening, and fragrant assault on the senses. Before you even see it, you can smell it. A potent cocktail of dried fish, roasting onions, animal dung, cheap perfume, and the sweat of 1,000 unwashed bodies packed into a dusty square. The air is thick with flies and shouts, a symphony of haggling played in a dozen different dialects. This is the engine of the Egyptian economy, and it runs on noise, desperation, and the art of the deal. There is no money here. Not a single coin will change hands all day. This is a world of barter, a complex, high-stakes dance where the value of everything is negotiable. It's less Wall Street and more back-alley dice game. Your mission is to turn a physical object into a specific amount of grain. You carry your only real asset, a finely carved wooden headrest, a luxury item your grandfather made, passed down through the family. It's smooth, elegant, and utterly useless for feeding a family, but it has value. The question is, how much? You push your way through the crowd, dodging a runaway goat here, a porter balancing a tower of pottery on his head there. Every stall is a miniature drama. A woman argues furiously with a poultry seller, holding up two scrawny chickens and demanding a better price on a bolt of linen. A farmer tries to trade a basket of dates for a new copper chisel, his face a study in concentration as he inspects the tool for flaws. There are no price tags, no fixed rates. A jug of beer might be worth a bundle of papyrus reeds in the morning and 2 dried fish in the afternoon, depending on who's thirsty and who's hungry. You find the grain merchant, a man whose belly suggests he never loses a negotiation. He sits behind mountains of barley, wheat, and emmer, a wooden measure in his hand, his eyes sharp and calculating. He is the king of this corner of the market, and you are just another peasant with a problem. You present the headrest. He takes it, feels its weight, runs a thumb over the smooth acacia wood. He shows no emotion, no flicker of interest. This is the first move in the game. He grunts, a sound that could mean anything from "this is garbage" to "I will give you my daughter for this." He asks what you want. You tell him your story, a carefully edited version that omits the shameful details of the accusation. You just need to pay a debt. You need barley, enough to equal half a sack. You name your price. He scoffs, a theatrical, dismissive sound that echoes through the stall. He points out a tiny, invisible scratch on the wood. He claims acacia is common, that he has 3 better headrests in his storeroom. He offers you a ridiculously small amount of grain, barely enough for a week's worth of bread, let alone a fine. And so the dance begins. You protest, highlighting the craftsmanship, the quality of the wood, the fact that it was made by a master craftsman. You gesture, you raise your voice, you appeal to his sense of fairness. He counters, shaking his head, picking at his teeth, looking away as if bored. This isn't just about value. It's a battle of wills, a test of who can wear the other down first. Other customers are waiting. The sun is getting higher, hotter. Your desperation is a scent he can smell, and he uses it against you. He inches his offer up, a few handfuls of grain at a time. You lower your demand, your heart sinking with each concession. You know you're being cheated. You can feel it, but you have no choice. The official's deadline looms. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of posturing and feigned indifference, you agree on a price. It's far less than the headrest is worth, but it's just enough to cover the fine. He measures out the grain, his movements swift and practiced. You watch his hands like a hawk, ensuring he doesn't use a weighted measure or a false bottom. He pours the barley into your rough linen sack. The deal is done. You've traded a piece of your family's history, a beautiful object of comfort, for a pile of dusty grain to give to a man who lied about you. As you shoulder the heavy sack and turn to leave, you don't feel relief. You feel hollowed out. The market didn't just take your headrest, it took a piece of your dignity. You came seeking justice for your fine, and all you got was another transaction in a world that has no time for it. You finally stumble home as the sun begins to bleed across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The weight of the grain sack on your shoulder is nothing compared to the weight in your soul. You've handed it over to Mena, who accepted it with a smug nod. The matter officially closed. You are no longer a criminal in the eyes of the village, just a man who is poorer and weaker than he was at sunrise. You push aside the reed mat that serves as your door and step into the cool darkness of your mud brick house. The air inside is thick with the smell of wood smoke and baking bread. Your wife looks up from the hearth, her face etched with the day's anxiety. Your children, two small dusty figures, stop their play and stare at you with wide, questioning eyes. There are no words. There don't need to be. They can read the exhaustion and defeat on your face. This is your family. In the tomb paintings of the wealthy, the family is a serene, idealized portrait. A noble husband, a graceful wife, and perfectly behaved children, all gliding into the afterlife surrounded by offerings and servants. Your reality is this: a single cramped room that you share with 4 other people, a few clay pots, some sleeping mats, and the constant dawning pressure of survival. Your family is not a romantic ideal. It is a pragmatic, brutally efficient economic unit. Your wife is not just your partner. She is the manager of the household, a master of turning scarcity into sustenance. She grinds the grain, bakes the bread, weaves the linen, fetches the water, and raises the children, her hands never still. Your children are not just objects of affection. They are your future. They are the hands that will one day help you in the field, the support system that will care for you in your old age. In a world with no retirement plan, your children aren't your legacy. They're your social security. Tonight, the silence is heavy. You sit on a low stool, the same one you've sat on every night of your life, and watch as your wife breaks the flatbread. She hands you a piece. It's still warm. It's coarse, gritty with sand from the grinding stone, but it's food. It's life. In this simple gesture, there is a universe of unspoken understanding. She doesn't need to ask what happened at the market. She knows what the headrest meant to you. She knows the cost. Love, in your world, isn't spoken in poems or sealed with a kiss. It's demonstrated in shared labor and mutual endurance. It's the way she saved a few dates for the children, a rare treat. It's the way your son, without being asked, fills the water jar for the morning. It's the quiet solidarity of bodies huddled together on a single mat, seeking warmth against the cool desert night. This small, fragile unit is your only sanctuary, the one place where you are not judged, not measured, not found wanting. But it is also your heaviest chain. Your failure today is their failure. The loss of the headrest means there is one less item for your daughter's dowry, making her marriage prospects dimmer. The grain you paid as a fine is grain that won't be in their stomachs this winter. Your every action is tied to their fate. If you get sick, they starve. If you incur a debt, they inherit it. The weight of their future rests squarely on your aching shoulders. As darkness fills the room, lit only by the faint glow of the dying embers in the hearth, your youngest child crawls into your lap. He doesn't say anything, just rests his head against your chest. You wrap your arms around him, feeling the frailness of his small body. In this moment, the family is not an economic unit. It is not a burden. It is simply this: a safe harbor in a cruel world, a reason to get up tomorrow morning, walk out into the unforgiving sun, and face it all over again. It is your greatest vulnerability, and it is your only real strength. The next morning, the sun attacks with the same relentless fury as always, but something in the world has shifted. The air feels heavier. The familiar sounds of the village, the crowing of roosters, the rhythmic thump of a woman grinding grain, seem distant, muffled. The fragile peace of your family's embrace has evaporated with the morning dew, leaving behind the cold, hard reality of your diminished state. You are poorer, yes, but it's more than that. You have been marked. The incident with Mena wasn't just a dispute. It was a demonstration of your weakness, and in the brutal ecosystem of village life, weakness is an invitation. The invitation is answered just after midday. He doesn't arrive with a thunderclap or a procession. He simply appears at the edge of your field, a stark, white-kilted figure, standing out against the brown earth and green shoots. He is the scribe. He's not a priest. He's not a soldier. But in many ways, he is more powerful than both. He is the agent of the state, the eyes and ears of a pharaoh you will never see, the living embodiment of a bureaucracy that controls every aspect of your life. And his weapon, more devastating than any sword or spear, is a simple palette of ink and a roll of papyrus. He can read and write. You cannot, and that single unbridgeable gap is the source of his absolute power over you. His name is Amenhotep, and you've seen him before. He comes every year to assess the fields and calculate the grain tax. But this visit is different. It's too early for the official assessment. His presence here, today, is a message. He doesn't walk into your field. He waits for you to come to him. A silent command you have no choice but to obey. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of a muddy hand and walk towards him, your heart a cold, heavy stone in your chest. He doesn't greet you. He doesn't smile. His face is a mask of professional disinterest, his eyes scanning your field with a practiced, critical gaze. He holds a reed pen poised over a wooden board. He begins to speak, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. He informs you that there has been a reassessment, a new decree from the regional governor. Due to a projected shortfall for the royal granaries, the tax quota for this sector has been increased. You stare at him, uncomprehending. Increased, but the flood was only average this year. The planting was difficult. You know, with the certainty of a man whose life depends on it, that your field cannot produce more than it is already struggling to. You try to explain this. You point to the patches where the soil is thin, the shoots less vibrant. You talk about the endless work with the shadow, the constant battle against pests. The scribe doesn't even look at you. He makes a few swift, elegant marks on his board. Hieroglyphs. To you, they are nothing more than pictures of birds and squiggles and seated men. To him, they are your fate, written in black ink. He doesn't argue with you. He doesn't debate the realities of agriculture. He simply states the new number. The number is impossibly high. It represents not just your surplus, but a significant portion of what your family needs to survive the year. This is where the terror truly sets in. You cannot read what he has written. You cannot check his calculations. You cannot appeal to a higher authority, because he is the higher authority. His written record is the official reality. Your lived experience, the sweat, the aching back, the daily anxiety, is just noise. What is written on that papyrus is what is true. If he writes that your field produced 100 sacks of barley, then in the eyes of the state, it produced 100 sacks of barley. The fact that you only harvested 60 is your problem, not his. You realize what is happening. This isn't a random decree. This is a consequence. Word of your dispute with Mena, of your fine, has reached the ears of those in power. It has signaled that you are vulnerable, a man without the social capital to defend himself. You are an easy target. The scribe isn't just collecting taxes. He's preying on the weak. The extra grain he squeezes out of you might line his own pockets, or it might earn him favor with his superiors. It doesn't matter. The mechanism is the same. The illiterate are the fuel for the literate machine. You could protest. You could fall to your knees and beg. You could scream that this is an injustice, a violation of the very might he is supposed to uphold. But you do none of these things, because you've seen what happens to those who challenge a scribe. You've seen farmers flogged for arguing, their fields confiscated, their families left with nothing. The scribe's word against yours is the word of the gods against the grunting of an ox. So you stand there in the blazing sun, your world shrinking to the space between the scribe's pen and his papyrus. You nod, a single, defeated gesture. You accept the new reality he has written into existence. He makes a final, decisive mark on his board, a flourish of ink that seals your family's fate for the coming year. He turns and walks away without another word, a silent, white-robed ghost disappearing back into the machinery of the state. You are left alone, standing in your own field, which now feels like a prison. The knowledge he represents isn't just the ability to read and write. It's the knowledge of how the system works, how to manipulate it, how to turn its rules into weapons. You have been disarmed, stripped bare, not by a thief in the night, but by a man with a pen in the bright light of day. And as you look at the elegant, incomprehensible symbols he left behind, you understand that the deepest poverty isn't the lack of grain, it's the lack of words. The scribe's visit has shattered any illusion of control you might have had. The world is no longer a place of predictable cycles, planting, flooding, harvesting. It is a treacherous landscape of hidden rules and arbitrary power. Your only recourse, the only path left to you, is the one you've been taught to fear and revere in equal measure. The law. You must appeal. You must seek justice, not the makeshift, face-saving justice of the village elder, but the formal, terrifying justice of the town court. You have to travel. The court is a day's walk away, in the nearest administrative town. You leave before dawn, a small bundle containing a water skin and a piece of dry bread, your only provision. The journey itself is a pilgrimage from your small, familiar world into the heart of the system that is crushing you. You pass other farmers in their fields, other villages that look just like yours, a vast quilt of human struggle, stitched together by the Nile. The town is a shock to the system. It's 10 times the size of your village, a labyrinth of narrow, winding streets, multi-story mud brick buildings, and a cacophony of sounds that makes your village market seem like a temple library. Here, the power of the state is not a visiting ghost. It is a permanent, looming presence. You see soldiers with spears and shields, officials in finer linen than you've ever seen, and scribes rushing through the streets, their papyrus rolls tucked under their arms like batons of authority. You find the court, a modest, open-air chamber attached to the governor's administrative building. There is no grand facade, no marble columns. Justice, for people like you, is a functional, bureaucratic affair. A handful of other petitioners are already there, their faces etched with the same mixture of hope and dread that you feel. A woman clutching a deed she claims has been forged. A craftsman accusing his partner of stealing tools. A family locked in a bitter inheritance dispute. You are all here for the same reason. You believe, against all evidence, that the system can be made to work for you. Your turn comes. You are brought before a panel of 3 judges, local magistrates appointed by the governor. They sit on carved wooden chairs, their expressions bored and impatient. They have heard 100 stories like yours. A scribe, the same one who records their verdicts, sits beside them, his pen ready. There is no lawyer to speak for you. You are your own advocate. You begin your story, your voice trembling. At first, you speak of the scribe, Amenhotep. You describe your field, your harvest, the impossible tax he has levied upon you. You try to be clear, to be logical. You appeal to math, to fairness, to the pharaoh's divine duty to protect his people. The judges listen, occasionally whispering to one another. One of them interrupts you, his voice sharp. Do you have proof? Do you have a record? A witness? Proof? Your proof is the sun on your back, the calluses on your hands, the intimate knowledge of your own land. But that is not the kind of proof they understand. The only proof that matters here is written proof, and the only written proof in this case is the scribe's own record, the very document you are contesting. The scribe of the court unrolls a sheet of papyrus. It's a copy of Amenhotep's assessment. He reads from it, his voice a monotonous drone. The numbers, the official yields, the final tax calculation. It is all there, neat, orderly, and irrefutable. Your spoken words, full of desperation and truth, feel flimsy and unsubstantial against the weight of that inked papyrus. Then comes the part you have been dreading. The judges are not satisfied. They need more certainty. One of them signals to a guard. The guard brings out a simple wooden stick. This is the next stage of the legal process, the ordeal. You will be beaten, not necessarily as a punishment, but as a truth-seeking tool. The theory, as brutal as it is simple, is that pain will loosen the tongue of a liar. If you stick to your story while being flogged, it lends credibility to your testimony. You are forced to your knees, your tunic pulled aside. The first blow lands across your back, a searing line of fire. You gasp, the breath driven from your lungs. The judge asks again, are you contesting the official record of the scribe Amenhotep? Through the haze of pain, you repeat your claim. It is wrong. The tax is unjust. The stick falls again and again. Each blow is a physical punctuation mark to their questions. The pain is blinding, all-consuming. It becomes difficult to think, to form words. The line between truth and lies begins to blur, replaced by the overwhelming, primal need for the pain to stop. You see now why this is so effective. It's not a test of truth, it's a test of endurance. And you know with a sickening certainty that the scribe Amenhotep would never be subjected to this. His word, his written word, is sacrosanct. Yours must be verified with violence. After a dozen blows, you can barely speak. Your back is a raw, bleeding mess. The head judge, seeing that you will not break, or perhaps simply bored with the spectacle, signals for it to stop. He confers with his colleagues. You lie on the dusty ground, tasting blood and dirt, your hope draining away with every agonizing breath. The verdict comes. It is delivered with the same bureaucratic indifference as the beating. They have decided to investigate the matter. They will send another official to re-verify the scribe's assessment. In the meantime, the original tax levy stands. You are dismissed. You are dragged out of the courtroom, your body screaming in protest. You have endured a public beating. You have been humiliated, and you have achieved nothing. The investigation is a lie, a bureaucratic fiction to make you go away. The system has not bent. It has simply beaten you into submission and sent you back to your broken life. As you begin the long, painful walk home, you understand the true nature of Egyptian justice. It is not a scale. It is a wall, and you just spent the day throwing your body against it. You arrive back at your village under the cloak of darkness, a ghost returning to his own grave. Every step of the journey was an exercise in agony. Your back a landscape of fire. You didn't dare stop, driven by the primal need to collapse on your own sleeping mat, to be inside the 4 mud brick walls that are your only sanctuary. Your wife meets you at the door, her face a silent scream as she sees the blood caked on the back of your tunic. She helps you inside, her touch gentle, and begins to clean your wounds with water and linen strips. There is no medicine, only this simple, inadequate care. The physical pain is immense, but it is the other pain, the deep internal wound that feels fatal. You have done everything a man is supposed to do. You have worked hard. You have respected the gods. You have appealed to the law, and you have been answered with lies, indifference, and violence. The grand cosmic order of Maat, the divine promise of balance and justice, feels like a cruel joke, a story told by the powerful to keep the powerless in their place. That night, sleep does not come. Every time you close your eyes, you see the scribe's impassive face, the judge's bored expression, the glint of the sun on the descending stick. You are trapped in a nightmare from which there is no waking. Your body is broken, your spirit is crushed, and your family's future is a barren field. But as the deepest, darkest hour of the night settles over the village, something happens. You hear a sound from outside, not the cry of a night bird or the rustle of the wind, but the soft, rhythmic chanting of human voices. It's a sound of mourning, yet also of comfort. It is your neighbors. Word has spread, the story of your journey to the town, of your beating of the impossible tax, has traveled through the village like a current in the Nile. They come not as a mob, not as accusers, but as fellow survivors. They gather outside your hut, a small, silent crowd in the moonlight. One of them, an old woman whose own son was taken by a crocodile years ago, begins to sing a lament, a song about the hardships of life, the cruelty of fate, and the endurance of the human heart. Others join in. Their voices are not polished or beautiful. They are rough, cracked, and full of the weariness of 1,000 such days. It is the music of shared suffering. Then, one by one, they approach your doorway. An old man, a farmer like you, leaves a small bundle of onions on your doorstep. A young woman, a potter, places a newly fired water jug beside it. Another family, almost as poor as you, leaves a handful of dried fish wrapped in a leaf. These are not grand gestures. They are tiny acts of rebellion. They cannot defy the scribe. They cannot overturn the verdict of the court, but they can defy the isolation that the system imposes. They are refusing to let you fall alone. They are reasserting a different kind of order, not the top-down, written order of the state, but the horizontal, unspoken order of community. It is a fragile, informal safety net, woven from empathy and shared experience. You lie on your mat, listening to their voices, the pain in your back momentarily forgotten. You are witnessing a quiet miracle. The system tried to break you, to isolate you, to make you an example, but your community, the very people whose whispers you feared just days ago, has decided to pull you back from the brink. They are sharing your burden, not because they are compelled by law, but because they are compelled by a simple, profound understanding. Tomorrow, it could be them. As the first hint of dawn touches the sky, the crowd disperses as silently as it came, leaving behind their small, precious offerings. You look at the onions, the jug, the fish. It is not enough to pay the tax. It is not enough to change your fate. But it is enough to survive another day. It is enough to know that you are not invisible. You close your eyes, and for the first time, you feel a flicker of something that is not pain or despair. It is a strange, fierce kind of peace. The gods may be distant. The pharaoh may be an abstract concept, and the law may be a weapon used against you. But in the quiet solidarity of your neighbors, in the simple offering of an onion, you have found the only justice that truly matters. It is the fragile, defiant, and profoundly human act of helping another carry an impossible weight, if only for a little while. And in the relentless, crushing reality of ancient Egypt, that is everything. We think we know the Silk Road. The name itself conjures a dreamscape, a river of commerce flowing through exotic lands, carrying treasures that sound like poetry. Silk, spices, jade, incense. It's a story we've told ourselves for centuries, a grand, romantic epic, starring intrepid merchants, wise monks, and noble camels silhouetted against a desert sunset. It's a board game, a travel documentary, a fantasy of adventure where risk is always rewarded and the destination is always a treasure chest. But this shimmering mirage of history hides a much harsher, much deadlier reality. The Silk Road wasn't a road. It was a network of treacherous, barely there trails stretching over 4,000 miles of the most unforgiving terrain on the planet. And the people who traveled it weren't adventurers seeking glory. They were desperate men, gambling their lives on a single brutal calculation that the horrors of the journey might be slightly less terrible than the poverty they were fleeing. Tonight, we're not just looking at the map, we're joining the caravan. We're asking what really happened on the path where every footstep could be your last. Because let me tell you, the silk was soft, but the road was forged from iron, grit, and the bones of those who never made it home. So before we set off, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe pour yourself a glass of water. You're gonna need it, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Welcome to the Silk Road, the world's most famous trade route and the deadliest gamble in human history. It all starts with a dream, or rather, the wreckage of one. You're not a wealthy merchant prince or a curious explorer. You're the second son of a farmer from the dusty plains of central China, and a recent drought has turned your family's land into a cracked, barren wasteland. The harvest failed, the granary is empty. The local moneylender, who was so friendly last year, now looks at you with the cold, patient eyes of a vulture. There is nothing left for you here but debt and starvation. Then, one evening in a smoky tavern, you hear the stories. A traveler, his face weathered like old leather, speaks of the lands to the west. He talks of cities where horses are said to sweat blood, of mountains that touch the sky, and of markets where a single bolt of Chinese silk can be traded for its weight in gold. He speaks of the Sogdians, the master merchants of the road, who are always looking for new hands to join their caravans. He paints a picture of unimaginable wealth, a world away from the dust and despair of your village. It's a lie, of course, a carefully constructed fantasy designed to lure desperate young men like you, but it's the only lie you have left to hold on to. So you make a decision. You sell the last of your family's meager possessions, a bronze pot, a few tools, your father's old coat, for a handful of coins. You say goodbye to your parents, a wrenching, silent farewell in the pre-dawn gloom, knowing you will likely never see them again. And you walk to the nearest garrison town, the gateway to the west, to offer yourself as a caravan guard, a camel driver, anything that will get you a place on the road. You find the caravan master, a Sogdian named Rustam. He's a hard man with eyes that have seen everything the road has to offer and have been impressed by none of it. He doesn't ask about your hopes or dreams. He looks at your hands to see if they're calloused. He looks at your back to see if it's strong. He looks at your eyes to see if they hold the particular kind of foolish desperation he can exploit. You have it. You're hired. Your pay will be a small share of the profits, payable only upon successful arrival in Samarkand, a city whose name sounds like a myth. Until then, you will be given food, water, and a place to sleep under the stars. It's a slave's contract, disguised as an opportunity. You accept it without hesitation. The caravan is a city on the move. 100 camels, loaded high with bales of silk, chests of lacquerware, and rolls of bronze mirrors. 50 men, seasoned merchants, grizzled guards, young fools like yourself, and a handful of Buddhist monks making a pilgrimage to the holy sites of India. For the first few weeks, the journey is deceptively easy. You travel through the Hexi corridor, a relatively green and populated stretch of land protected by the Great Wall. The days are long and monotonous, but there are fortified towns where you can resupply, wells where you can draw fresh water, and a sense of forward momentum that feels like progress. The romance of the road, for a fleeting moment, seems real. You learn the rhythm of the journey, waking before dawn in the biting cold, loading the complaining, spitting camels, the endless, plodding walk, the sun climbing higher and higher in a bleached, indifferent sky, the taste of dust in your mouth, in your food, in your soul, the brief respite of the evening campfire, where stories are told in a dozen languages you don't understand. You are an outsider, a cog in a machine that has been running for centuries. Your only job is to keep moving. And then, one day, you arrive at the Jade Gate, the last fortified outpost of the Chinese Empire. Ahead of you lies nothing but an endless, shimmering sea of sand. The real journey, the one the traveler in the tavern never mentioned, is about to begin. You are about to enter the Taklamakan Desert. The locals have a name for it. It means, go in and you will not come out. The Taklamakan Desert does not care about you. It is not an adversary to be conquered. It is a state of being, a vast, elemental force of oblivion. On the first day, the sheer scale of it paralyzes you. There are no landmarks, no trees, no rocks, no features of any kind, just an endless panorama of sand dunes, shifting and whispering in the wind, their crests sharp as knife blades against the pale blue sky. The world you knew, of rivers, fields, and people, has ceased to exist. You are adrift in a golden ocean of nothingness. The heat is a physical presence, a malevolent entity that presses down on you from all sides. It's not the familiar heat of your village. This is a dry, desiccating heat that leaches the moisture from your body with every breath. The sun is not a life-giving star. It's a white-hot furnace door hanging in the sky. It reflects off the sand with a blinding intensity that makes your eyes water and your head ache. The caravan master insists you wrap your head and face in cloth, not just to protect from the sun, but from the fine, wind-blown sand that finds its way into everything: your mouth, your ears, your lungs. Your water ration is the most precious thing you own. It is measured out twice a day. A small, lukewarm, metallic-tasting cupful that is never, ever enough. Thirst becomes your constant companion, a dull, persistent ache in the back of your throat that slowly blossoms into a raging fire. Your mind becomes obsessed with it. You dream of rivers, of rain, of waterfalls. You begin to understand why some travelers, driven mad by thirst, have been known to drink the blood of their own camels, a desperate, final act that only hastens their end. The days are a waking nightmare of heat and monotony. The plodding pace of the camels, the creak of leather, the soft, sighing hiss of the wind over the dunes. These are the only sounds in a universe of profound silence. Time itself seems to stretch and dissolve. Was that this morning or yesterday? Have you been walking for a week or a lifetime? Your world shrinks to the space immediately in front of you. The swaying backside of the camel you are leading, the cracked, sun-baked earth under your worn-out sandals. But it is the nights that are truly terrifying. The temperature plummets with shocking speed. The suffocating heat of the day gives way to a biting, bone-deep cold. You huddle together around a small fire made from the dried camel dung you collected during the day, the only fuel available. The fire offers little warmth against the vast, empty cold of the desert, but it holds back the darkness, and the darkness is absolute. The sky is a terrifying spectacle, a dome of black velvet punctured by millions of impossibly bright stars. There is no moon. The sheer cosmic indifference of it all makes you feel smaller and more insignificant than you have ever felt in your life. Sometimes the wind rises. It starts as a low moan and builds into a shrieking, sand-filled gale. These are the infamous sandstorms, the black hurricanes of the Taklamakan. The world disappears. Visibility drops to zero. The air becomes a thick, choking fog of sand. The only thing you can do is crouch down, wrap your cloth tighter around your face, and pray. The camels instinctively lie down, forming a living wall against the storm. The noise is deafening, a roaring, abrasive sound that feels like the world is being scoured clean. You can feel the sand piling up against your back, trying to bury you. You huddle close to the warm, stinking body of a camel, a terrified child seeking comfort from a beast. The storms can last for hours, sometimes for days. When they finally pass, the landscape has been completely transformed. Dunes that were once on your left are now on your right. The trail has vanished. Everything has been erased. It is during one of these storms that you witness the desert's true cruelty. One of the younger camel drivers, a boy no older than yourself, gets disoriented in the swirling chaos and wanders away from the group. When the storm clears, he is gone. The caravan master sends out a search party, but it is a formality. They find no tracks, no sign. The desert has simply swallowed him. That night, no one speaks his name. He has become a ghost, another whisper in the wind. You look at the empty space where he used to sleep, and you understand the desert doesn't kill you with malice. It kills you with indifference. It simply erases you, as if you were never there at all. The caravan moves on the next morning. One man lighter, the journey must continue. There is no time to mourn. There is only the sand, and the sun, and the ever-present thirst. You thought the desert was the enemy. You believed that if you could just endure the heat, the thirst, and the storms, you would be safe. You were wrong. As you slowly, painfully, make your way out of the heart of the Taklamakan, you discover a new and far more insidious threat. The caravan is a magnet for the desperate, the lawless, and the predatory. The natural world was trying to kill you with indifference. The human world will try to kill you with intent. The first sign of this new danger comes as you approach the scattered, isolated oases that dot the edge of the desert. These small pockets of green are supposed to be havens, places of rest and recovery, but they are also choke points, places where the caravan is at its most vulnerable, and they attract predators. They are called bandits, but that word is too simple. They are not a single, organized group. They are a loose collection of displaced tribesmen, ex-soldiers, and failed merchants, men who have been broken by the road and have decided to survive by preying on those who are still on it. They know the terrain. They know the wells. They know the best places for an ambush. The attack comes without warning. One moment, the caravan is plodding along in its usual somnolent rhythm. The next, the air is filled with a high, ululating cry. They appear as if from the earth itself, pouring over the crest of a nearby dune, their faces wrapped in dark cloth, brandishing curved swords and short, powerful bows. Chaos erupts. The merchants, who have been complaining about the pace all week, now scream in terror. The camels, startled by the noise, begin to panic, their bellows of fear adding to the din. Rustam, the caravan master, is a changed man. The bored, cynical merchant is gone, replaced by a ruthless, battle-hardened commander. He barks orders, his voice cutting through the panic. The guards, yourself included, form a protective circle around the most valuable cargo, the silk. This is what you were hired for. You have a short sword and a small, round shield. You have never used either in a real fight. Your hands are slick with sweat, your mouth dry with a fear that is sharper and colder than any thirst you have ever known. A bandit charges at you, his eyes wild and fanatic above his veil. He is shouting something in a language you don't understand. There is no time to think, no time to be afraid. You react on pure animal instinct. You raise your shield. You thrust with your sword. There's a sickening wet sound. The man stumbles, his eyes wide with surprise, and falls at your feet. You have just killed a man. There is no glory in it, no sense of victory, just a wave of nausea and a profound hollow shock. The fight is short, brutal, and chaotic. The bandits are not trying to conquer the caravan. They are trying to cause enough panic to grab what they can and flee. They slash at the ropes, holding the cargo, trying to pull down a bale of silk. They target the water skins, knowing that a caravan without water is a caravan of the dead. 2 of your fellow guards go down, one with an arrow in his chest, the other with a deep gash in his leg. You see one of the monks, a man who has spent the entire journey in peaceful meditation, club a bandit to the ground with his heavy walking staff, his face a mask of grim determination. After a few frantic minutes, it's over. The surviving bandits melt back into the dunes as quickly as they appeared, taking with them 2 camels and a chest of lacquerware. The silence they leave behind is more deafening than the battle itself. The air smells of blood and dust. You look at the body at your feet, at the face of the man you killed. He looks just like you, young, desperate, and worn down by the world. You realize he was probably part of a caravan, just like this one, until something went wrong. He wasn't born a monster. The road made him one. The caravan does not stop to mourn the dead guards. Their bodies are buried in shallow, sandy graves, a few stones piled on top to mark the spot. Their share of the profits will be divided among the survivors. It's a brutal, unsentimental calculus. The man with the wounded leg is hoisted onto a camel. He will likely die of infection within a week, but he cannot be left behind. The journey must continue. But the fear of the bandits is only the most visible threat. A more constant, grinding danger comes from the people who are supposed to be on your side. As you approach the fortified cities that mark the major nodes of the trade route, you enter the world of official corruption. Every gate is manned by a local warlord or a petty official who sees the caravan not as a sign of commerce, but as a giant, slow-moving wallet. There are tolls, taxes, gifts, a fee for entering the city, a fee for leaving the city, a tax on the number of camels, a tax on the color of the silk. The rules are arbitrary, invented on the spot, and always negotiable if you have the right bribe. Rustam spends hours haggling with these officials, his face a mask of forced politeness as he offers them bolts of lesser quality silk or small bronze trinkets to smooth the way. It is a slow, methodical bleeding of the caravan's profits. And within the caravan itself, the trust that held you all together in the deep desert begins to fray. The shared hardship is replaced by suspicion and greed. You watch the merchants constantly, their eyes flicking towards each other's cargo, calculating, always calculating. You see men whispering in corners, forming small, shifting alliances. A rumor starts that one of the merchants is hiding a stash of jade inside a bale of ordinary silk. Suddenly, everyone is watching him, their expressions a mixture of envy and contempt. You, the guard, are caught in the middle. You are paid to protect the cargo, but from whom? The bandits outside, or the merchants inside. One night, you catch another guard trying to slit open a small pouch attached to a merchant's saddle. You confront him. He offers you a share. You refuse. He pulls a knife. There's a brief, desperate struggle in the dark. You manage to disarm him. The next morning, you report him to Rustam. The caravan master listens, nods, and says nothing. Later that day, the guard simply disappears. No one asks where he went. No one wants to know. The road has its own justice, swift and silent. You have survived another threat, but you have also learned a new lesson in this world. Loyalty is a commodity, and it is always for sale. The only person you can truly trust is yourself. After weeks that feel like a lifetime, a miracle appears on the horizon. It starts as a dark, smudgy line, a flaw in the perfect, shimmering emptiness of the desert. As you draw closer, the line resolves itself into something impossible, a wall of green trees. It's the city of Dunhuang, one of the great oasis crossroads of the Silk Road, a legendary haven for weary travelers. From a distance, it looks like paradise, a promise of cool water, fresh food, and a real bed after 1,000 nights on the hard, cold ground. But paradise has a price of admission, and the stench of it hits you long before you see the gates. It's the smell of humanity packed too tightly together, a suffocating brew of sewage, rotting garbage, and unwashed bodies, all simmering under the relentless sun. The city is not a serene sanctuary. It's a festering, overcrowded, and deeply cynical organism that survives by feeding on the caravans that pass through it. The moment you pass through the city gates, you are swallowed by a maelstrom of noise and activity. The narrow streets are choked with a river of people. Sogdian merchants in their conical hats, Chinese soldiers in lacquered armor, Buddhist monks in saffron robes, Turkic nomads with braided hair, and 100 other ethnicities you can't even name. Everyone is shouting, haggling, pushing. The city is a temporary home to the transient, a place where no one has roots and everyone is looking for an angle. This is not a place of rest. It is a place of business, and the business is relentless. The caravan disperses into the city's complex ecosystem. Rustam and the other senior merchants disappear into the cool, dark interiors of trading houses to negotiate deals for fresh camels, supplies, and information on the road ahead. The rest of you are left to fend for yourselves in the city's sprawling, chaotic caravanserai, a massive, walled compound of stables, storerooms, and tiny, windowless rooms for travelers. The caravanserai is a microcosm of the Silk Road itself. It's a place of incredible diversity and profound danger. Here, languages, cultures, and goods mix in a vibrant, swirling stew. You see men from the Roman Empire haggling with Indian spice traders over the price of pepper. You see Tibetan nomads trading wool for Chinese tea. It's a beautiful, intoxicating vision of a connected world. But beneath this surface of cosmopolitan exchange lies a dark underbelly. The caravanserai is also a breeding ground for every vice imaginable. There are gambling dens where men lose their entire share of the profits on a single roll of the dice. There are opium sellers who offer a sweet, temporary escape from the horrors of the road. an escape from which many never return. There are taverns filled with cheap, potent wine and prostitutes whose eyes hold the same weary desperation as your own. And then there is the sickness. The oasis city is not just a hub for goods, it is a hub for germs. Every caravan brings with it the diseases of its homeland and picks up new ones to carry to the next destination. The water sources are contaminated. The sanitation is non-existent. The air is thick with coughs and sneezes. You see men with the telltale rashes of smallpox, the gaunt, skeletal frames of dysentery, the vacant, feverish stares of typhoid. The city is a giant petri dish, and you are bathing in it. The man with the wounded leg, the one who survived the bandit attack, finally succumbs. His leg, swollen and black with gangrene, has poisoned his blood. He dies one night in the caravanserai, his feverish moans a quiet counterpoint to the raucous noise from the tavern next door. His death is a minor inconvenience. His body is wrapped in a cheap mat and carried out of the city to be buried in the sand, another anonymous casualty of the road. His death is a stark reminder. The oasis is not a sanctuary. It is merely a different kind of trap. The desert tries to kill you quickly, with sun and sand. The city kills you slowly, with corruption, disease, and despair. You spend your days guarding the remaining cargo, your nights sleeping with one eye open, your sword by your side. You are surrounded by people, but you have never felt more alone. The city promised paradise, but it delivered a vision of hell, a place where human life is just another commodity to be bought, sold, and discarded. The entire purpose of this grueling, death-defying journey is the cargo, the bales of silk, the chests of lacquerware, the bronze mirrors. These are the reason you are here. In the chaos of the city, you are given a new task to help the merchants inspect, repack, and sometimes trade the goods. And it is here, in the dusty, poorly lit storerooms of Dunhuang, that you finally come face to face with the soul of the Silk Road. You unwrap a bale of silk for the first time. The outer layers are coarse, protective burlap, but as you peel them away, you reveal the treasure within. The silk flows through your fingers like liquid light. It's impossibly soft, impossibly smooth, and it shimmers even in the dim light of the storeroom, catching the colors of the rainbow. There are bolts of imperial yellow, crimson red, and a deep, lustrous black that seems to swallow the light. This is what kings and emperors in the far west will pay a fortune for. This is the engine of the entire enterprise. But as you handle the beautiful, weightless fabric, you begin to think about where it comes from. It doesn't just appear. It is not a gift from the gods. You remember your own village and the small, windowless huts where the women spent their lives. You remember their stooped shoulders, their strained, red-rimmed eyes, and their fingers, nimble but calloused from endless hours of work. The silk is not just a product. It is the physical embodiment of a woman's life, of countless hours spent in near darkness, feeding silkworms, unraveling cocoons, and weaving threads so fine they are almost invisible. Each intricate pattern, each vibrant color, represents a piece of a life you will never know. A life of quiet, domestic servitude, a world away from the grand adventure of the road. The incredible value of this fabric is directly proportional to the cheapness of the labor that produced it. Then you move to the other goods, the lacquerware boxes, so glossy and perfect, their surfaces decorated with mythical creatures and serene landscapes. You learn that the lacquer is derived from the sap of a poisonous tree, and that the artisans who work with it often suffer from terrible rashes and respiratory ailments. Their pursuit of perfect beauty comes at the cost of their own health. The bronze mirrors, so highly prized in the West where glass is still a rare luxury, are cast in workshops filled with toxic fumes. The men who make them often go blind or mad from the lead and mercury used in the process. Every item in the caravan tells the same story, a story of human cost. The spices, the cloves, the cinnamon, the nutmeg that will one day perfume the halls of Roman villas are harvested by laborers in tropical lands who risk snake bites, tropical diseases, and falls from high trees for a pittance. The jade, so cool and smooth to the touch, is mined from treacherous mountain slopes by men who are little more than slaves, their lives considered expendable in the quest for a flawless stone. You realize that the Silk Road is not a chain of commerce, it is a chain of exploitation. It begins with the producer, the weaver, the miner, the farmer, whose labor is extracted for a fraction of its worth. It passes through the hands of the merchant, who risks his life to multiply that value 100-fold, and it ends with the consumer, the wealthy elite in a distant land, who enjoys the final product with no concept of the river of sweat, blood, and tears that it represents. You are a part of this chain. As a guard, your job is to protect this concentrated wealth, this crystallized human suffering, from other desperate people who want a piece of it. The bandits who attacked you, the man you killed, they were just trying to cut out the middleman. They were trying to get their share of the value that had been stolen from the producers long before it was ever loaded onto a camel. You look down at the bolt of crimson silk in your hands. It is beautiful. It is perfect, and it is soaked in an invisible blood that stretches from the weaver's hut in China to the desert grave of the guard who died defending it. The romance of the road is a lie. The glory of trade is a lie. The only truth is the relentless, brutal conversion of human life into portable, profitable luxury. You carefully rewrap the silk, your hands now feeling the weight of not just the fabric, but of the entire predatory system it represents. Your journey is not an adventure. It is a crime, and you are an accomplice. After what feels like an eternity, the caravan is finally ready to leave Dunhuang and face the next leg of the journey. You are no longer the naive farm boy who left home with dreams of gold. The road has scoured that innocence away, leaving behind a hard, cynical core. You have seen men die of thirst, of sickness, of violence. You have killed a man. You have understood the brutal economy of the world you inhabit. There are no more illusions. There is only the long, hard road ahead. The caravan is smaller now. Some merchants chose to stay in Dunhuang, having traded their goods for local products to take back east. Others joined different caravans, heading south towards India. The men who remain are the hardened veterans, the ones who are going all the way. The atmosphere has changed. The easy camaraderie of the early days is gone, replaced by a quiet, watchful professionalism. Everyone knows the risks. Everyone has made their peace with the fact that they might not survive. You leave the city, passing back through the gates into the vast emptiness of the desert. But this time, the landscape feels different. It is no longer just a physical obstacle. It is a mirror reflecting the emptiness and harshness that has grown inside you. The journey continues, a monotonous rhythm of walking, eating, sleeping. You cross more deserts, more mountains. You fight off another bandit attack, this one less chaotic, more businesslike. You lose another man to a fever that burns through him in 2 days. His loss is noted, his belongings are divided, and the caravan moves on. Months bleed into a year. The seasons change. The blistering heat of summer gives way to the savage, wind-whipped cold of a high-altitude winter. You cross the Pamir Mountains, the roof of the world, a breathtakingly beautiful and lethal landscape of snow, ice, and thin, oxygen-starved air. The camels struggle on the icy paths. Men suffer from frostbite and altitude sickness. The beauty of the snow-capped peaks is a cruel mockery of your suffering. And then, one day, you descend from the mountains into a green, fertile valley. You have crossed the threshold. You are in Sogdiana, the heartland of the Silk Road. A few days later, you see it in the distance, the blue domes and sun-baked walls of a great city, Samarkand, the destination, the end of the line. You have made it. You have survived. You have walked 4,000 miles across the deadliest landscapes on Earth. You have faced down bandits and corrupt officials, thirst and disease, heat and cold. You are one of the few who made it all the way. The caravan enters the city, a triumphant, bedraggled procession. The journey is over. Rustam, the caravan master, gathers the survivors. He is, for the first time, smiling. The profits have been immense. He begins to pay out the shares. He hands you a small, heavy pouch. You open it. Inside is not gold, but silver coins. It is more money than you have ever seen in your life, more than your father could earn in 10 lifetimes of farming. This is it, the reward, the reason for it all. You stand in the middle of a bustling Samarkand market, the pouch of silver heavy in your hand. You can buy anything you want, fine clothes, good food, a soft bed. You can start a new life. You have won the gamble. But as you look at the coins, you don't feel joy. You don't feel triumph. You feel nothing but a vast, aching emptiness. You think of the boy swallowed by the desert. You think of the guards buried in the sand. You think of the man you killed. You think of the women who wove the silk, their eyes failing in the dark. This silver is not a prize. It is blood money. It is the distilled essence of all that suffering. You look around you at the vibrant, thriving city, at the new caravans preparing to head east, at the fresh-faced young men, just like you once were, their eyes full of dreams of gold and spice. They don't know. They don't know what the road will do to them. They don't know the price that will be exacted. The great, glorious Silk Road is not a path to riches. It is a crucible that burns away your humanity, your hope, and your soul, leaving behind only this, a handful of silver, and the ghosts of everyone who didn't make it. You look down at the coins in your hand one last time. You have survived. Yes, but you are not sure if the man who started this journey is still alive. We all know the pirate. He lives in our collective imagination, a swashbuckling anti-hero, sailing under a black flag against a turquoise Caribbean sea. He's got a bottle of rum in one hand, a treasure map in the other, and a smart-mouthed parrot on his shoulder. He's a rebel, a rogue, a champion of freedom who lives by his own code, sticking it to the man in this case being the pompous gold-braided admirals of the Royal Navy. He is adventure personified, a romantic outlaw whose life is a thrilling montage of epic sea battles, buried treasure, and narrow escapes. But this beloved character, this charming renegade of the high seas, is a lie, a glorious, entertaining, and incredibly persistent lie. The golden age of piracy, that brief, explosive period in the early 18th century, wasn't a romantic adventure. It was a short, brutal, and profoundly desperate chapter in the history of labor. The men who raised the Jolly Roger weren't rebels by choice. They were refugees. They were the discarded, abused, and exploited refuse of the maritime world. And piracy wasn't a career they chose. It was the only option they had left before the sea swallowed them whole. Tonight, we're not just sailing with pirates, we're looking at the world that created them. Because let me tell you, the black flag wasn't a symbol of freedom. It was the last, desperate scream of men who had already been sentenced to death. So before we weigh anchor, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe pour yourself a shot of rum for authenticity, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Welcome to the golden age of piracy, a world not of treasure chests and talking parrots, but of scurvy, starvation, and the cold, hard logic of survival. Your story doesn't begin on a pirate ship. It begins in the stinking, overcrowded bilge of a merchant vessel, or worse, a man-o'-war of His Majesty's Royal Navy. You're not a volunteer. You were pressed into service. That's the polite term. The reality is that you were kidnapped. One night you were having a pint in a Bristol pub. The next you woke up with a splitting headache and the unmistakable lurch of the sea beneath you. You've been legally abducted to serve the king. Life on a naval vessel isn't an adventure. It's a floating prison with a spectacular death rate. You sleep in a hammock, crammed into a dark, airless deck with hundreds of other men. The air thick with the stench of unwashed bodies, bilge water, and disease. Your food is a monotonous, near-indible rotation of rock-hard ship's biscuit, often riddled with weevils, and salted beef so tough it's known as mahogany. The water is stored in wooden casks and quickly turns slimy and foul. You are perpetually hungry, perpetually thirsty, and perpetually on the verge of sickness. But the real torture is the discipline. The ship is a microcosm of the brutal class system you thought you'd left on land, only magnified 100 times. The officers, foppish gentlemen in immaculate wigs and fine coats, live in relative luxury, dining on fresh provisions and drinking wine. You, the common sailor, are treated as less than human. The slightest infraction, a moment's hesitation to obey an order, a grumbled complaint, being caught asleep on watch, is met with swift and savage punishment. The preferred instrument of discipline is the cat o' nine tails, a multi-tailed whip that flays the skin from a man's back, leaving him a scarred, bloody wreck. You've seen men flogged for dropping a rope. You've seen men flogged for looking at an officer the wrong way. The constant threat of the lash is the oil that keeps this brutal machine running. And for all this, you are paid almost nothing. Your meager wages are often months or even years in arrears. Corrupt pursers and captains skim off the top, leaving you with a pittance. If you are wounded in battle, you might be given a small pension, but more likely you'll be discharged in some foreign port with no money and no way home, left to beg or starve. If you die, your family gets nothing. You are a disposable cog in the great, glorious machine of the British Empire. One day, your ship engages a pirate vessel. After a brief, bloody battle, the pirates are victorious. They swarm aboard your ship, a terrifying vision of wild-eyed men with pistols in their belts and cutlasses in their teeth. But they don't treat you the way your officers did. They don't bark orders. They make you an offer. They ask if any among the crew wish to join them, to go on the account. You look at the pirate captain. He's dressed in rags, just like you. He speaks with the same rough accent. He's not a gentleman. He's one of you. Then you look at your own captain, his face white with fear, pleading for his life. This is the man who ordered you flogged last week for a minor mistake. The pirates drag him and his officers away. You know what will happen to them. They will be tortured, killed, or marooned on a deserted island, and you feel nothing. No pity, no loyalty, just a cold, hard satisfaction. You look at the black flag flying from the pirate ship's mast. It's a crude skull and crossbones, a universal symbol of death. But to you, in this moment, it looks like something else. It looks like a choice, a chance to escape the lash, the hunger, the endless grinding misery. It's a choice between a near certain death in the service of an empire that despises you and a probable death in the pursuit of your own fortune. It's not much of a choice, but it's the only one you've ever been given. You step forward, you renounce your king, your country, and the life that was stolen from you. You are no longer a sailor. You are a pirate. This was not an act of rebellion. It was an act of pure, calculated survival. You didn't choose the black flag because you craved freedom. You chose it because the alternative was a slow, agonizing death in chains. You step onto the deck of the pirate ship, and the first thing you notice is the noise. It's not the tense, disciplined silence of the naval vessel, punctuated by the sharp bark of an officer's command. It's a raucous, chaotic, and strangely democratic cacophony. Men are arguing, laughing, singing sea shanties, and passing around a bottle of rum. They come from every corner of the Atlantic world. English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, French, Dutch, Spanish, and a significant number of freed or escaped African slaves, for whom piracy was the only real form of emancipation available. It is a floating, multi-ethnic, revolutionary commune. The second thing you notice is that there are no officers in wigs. The man they call captain is elected. The very concept is staggering. On a naval or merchant ship, the captain is a god, his authority absolute and unquestionable. Here, his power is granted by the crew, and it can be taken away just as easily. A captain who is deemed cowardly, incompetent, or greedy can be voted out of office at any time. His authority is almost entirely limited to times of battle. All other major decisions, where to sail, when to attack, what punishments to mete out, are put to a vote, with every man on board having an equal say. You are immediately asked to sign the ship's articles. This is your new contract, your new constitution. It is a document drawn up and agreed upon by the entire crew, and it lays out the rules of your new society in stark, simple terms. It outlines the division of spoils, with the captain and quartermaster typically receiving only 1.5 or 2 shares to a common pirate's 1. It details the compensation for injuries, a set amount of money for the loss of an eye, an arm, a leg. It is the world's first system of workmen's compensation, a concept unheard of in the civilized world you just left. The articles also lay out the laws. No fighting on board, no bringing women onto the ship, no deserting your post in battle, and the punishment for breaking these rules, decided by a jury of your peers, is swift and brutal marooning or death. This is the pirate paradox. The ship is both a radical democracy and a ruthless tyranny. It offers a level of freedom and equality unimaginable in the world at large, but it is a freedom held in place by the constant threat of extreme violence. You have escaped the arbitrary cruelty of the naval captain, only to submit to the collective, formalized cruelty of the crew. The man who truly holds the power on board is not the captain, but the quartermaster. He too is elected by the crew, and his job is to represent their interests. He is the one who distributes the rations, settles disputes, and leads the boarding party during an attack. He is the voice of the people, the check on the captain's power. This division of authority is a deliberate, brilliant piece of political engineering, designed to prevent the kind of absolute tyranny that every man on board has experienced and fled. You are given your share of the work, There is no escape from the endless, back-breaking labor of sailing a ship. You still have to scrub the decks, mend the sails, and stand watch in the freezing rain. But the work feels different. You are no longer working for a distant king or a greedy merchant. You are working for yourself, for the collective. You are a shareholder in this violent, floating enterprise. This strange new society is held together by a single, unifying principle, a deep, abiding hatred for the world that created them. Every man on this ship carries the scars, both physical and psychological, of the merchant and naval systems. They hate the press gangs, the corrupt officers, the starvation wages, the cat-o'-nine tails. Their piracy is not just about greed, it is about revenge. When they capture a merchant ship, they often save their most creative cruelties for the captain and his officers. They see it as balancing the scales, as delivering a rough, bloody form of justice that the world has denied them. This shared trauma, this collective rage, is the glue that binds this disparate, drunken, and violent brotherhood together. It is a democracy born of desperation, a republic of outlaws. The romance of the pirate life dissolves the first time you feel the familiar, sickening ache in your gums. At first, it's just a tenderness, a slight bleeding when you chew on your rock-hard biscuit, but soon your gums begin to swell, turning a dark purplish color. Your teeth loosen in their sockets. Old scars on your body, long since healed, begin to reopen and ache. A profound, bone-deep weariness settles over you. You are suffering from scurvy, the great, silent killer of the age of sail. The pirate fantasy is a world of vibrant health and boundless energy. The reality is a slow, agonizing decay from the inside out. Your ship has been at sea for months, and the last of the fresh provisions, a few wizened onions, and some moldy cheese are long gone. Your diet has been reduced to the unholy trinity of the sea: weevily biscuit, salted meat, and foul water. The lack of vitamin C is systematically dismantling your body's ability to repair itself. You look around at your crewmates. You are not alone. Half the men on board are in a similar state. Their skin has taken on a pale, waxy pallor. Their joints ache. They move with the slow, shuffling gait of old men. The ship, once a hub of raucous energy, has become a floating hospital ward filled with the quiet groans of men in constant low-grade pain. Scurvy is not the only enemy. The ship is a perfect incubator for disease. The cramped, unsanitary conditions are a breeding ground for dysentery, which the sailors call the bloody flux. Men are weakened by constant diarrhea, their bodies dehydrated and exhausted. Typhoid, or ship fever, spreads like wildfire, carried by the lice that infest your clothes and bedding. A man can be healthy in the morning and dead by nightfall, his body racked by fever and delirium. And then there are the injuries. Sailing is dangerous work. Slip on a wet deck can mean a broken leg. A fall from the rigging can shatter a spine. A sudden storm can send a loose block or a snapping rope flying across the deck with enough force to crush a skull. The ship's surgeon is usually the cook or the carpenter, a man whose medical knowledge is limited to a few crude amputations, and the belief that a generous application of tar can cure almost anything. His primary tool is a saw. His only anesthetic is a large dose of rum. An open wound is a death sentence, an invitation to gangrene and infection. The hunt for fresh food and clean water becomes the crew's primary obsession, more important even than the hunt for treasure. The dream of a pirate's life was plundering Spanish galleons laden with gold. The reality is a desperate search for a deserted island with a freshwater spring, and some turtles you can catch and eat before they rot. When you do make landfall, it's a frantic race against time. Men gorge themselves on wild fruits, their bodies craving the nutrients they've been denied for so long. They hunt wild pigs and goats, roasting them on open fires in a gluttonous, desperate feast. But even these moments of plenty are fraught with danger. The water on an unknown island might be contaminated, the fruits might be poisonous, and the time spent ashore makes you vulnerable. A Royal Navy patrol could appear on the horizon at any moment, trapping you between the land and the sea. You begin to understand the pirates' greatest war is not against the Navy or merchant ships. It is a constant, grinding war of attrition against their own bodies. They are fighting against decay, against the slow, inevitable breakdown of the human machine in an environment that is relentlessly hostile to it. The skull and crossbones on your flag is not just a symbol to frighten your enemies. It is a prophecy. It is a constant reminder of the state you are all in. You are the living dead, animated skeletons, sailing on a sea of sickness, your bodies slowly rotting away, long before you ever face a cannonball or a hangman's noose. The treasure you seek is not gold or silver. It is a single ripe orange. It is a cup of clean, fresh water. It is one more day of life in a body that is trying its best to die. After months of nauseating, mind-numbing boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror, it finally happens. The lookout's cry echoes from the masthead. Sail ho! Instantly, the lethargy that has gripped the ship evaporates. Men scramble to their posts, a jolt of adrenaline cutting through the fog of hunger and disease. This is the moment. This is the reason you are all here. The target is a fat, slow-moving merchant vessel, low in the water, a sure sign of a heavy cargo. The captain, now fully in his element, barks a series of crisp commands. The ship comes alive. Sails are trimmed. The course is altered, and the chase begins. As you draw closer, you raise the black flag, the Jolly Roger. This is the first and most important weapon in your arsenal. It is psychological warfare, a declaration of intent written in bone white on a field of black. It says, "We are death. We are coming for you. Surrender, and you may live. Resist, and you will join our flag." The merchant ship, faced with this terrifying emblem, has a choice to make: fight and risk a bloody battle. They are almost certain to lose, or surrender and hope for mercy from men who are not known for it. Today, they choose to surrender. A cannon shot across their bow is enough. They lower their colors, and the chase is over. You pull alongside, and the boarding party, led by the quartermaster, swarms over the rails. There is no grand, swashbuckling duel. The merchant crew, mostly underfed and underpaid sailors, just like you once were, offer no resistance. They are rounded up, their faces a mixture of fear and resignation. And then, the plunder begins. This is the moment the pirate fantasy promises, the discovery of a treasure chest overflowing with gold doubloons and pieces of 8. The reality is far more mundane. You break open the ship's hold. There are no treasure chests. The cargo is barrels of sugar, crates of tobacco, and bolts of plain English wool. It's valuable, yes, but it's not the stuff of legend. It is the raw, unglamorous material of colonial commerce. The crew descends on the cargo like a pack of starving wolves. But they are not just looking for goods to sell. They are looking for things they can use. They strip the ship of everything: food, water, liquor, sails, ropes, anchors, navigational instruments, and even the personal belongings of the crew and passengers. A good pair of boots, a warm coat, a silver locket. It is all fair game. While the ship is being ransacked, The quartermaster conducts his own form of business. He interrogates the captured captain, demanding to know where the ship's valuables are hidden. There is often a small, strong box containing the ship's payroll or the captain's personal savings. If the captain cooperates, he might be spared. If he resists, he will be tortured with a casual, almost businesslike cruelty until he breaks. Finally, the real prize is located. Not a chest of gold, but a large cask of Madeira wine. A cheer goes up. The discipline that held the crew together during the chase dissolves instantly. The cask is breached, and the celebration begins. This is the other half of the pirate's life. Long periods of deprivation, punctuated by brief, violent explosions of manic indulgence. You take the captured ship to a secluded cove on an uninhabited island, and for the next few days, you cease to be a crew. You become a drunken mob. The wine flows freely. The captured sugar is mixed with rum to create a potent, sickly sweet concoction. Men drink until they pass out, wake up, and start drinking again. They sing, they dance, they fight. It is a frantic, desperate attempt to cram as much life as possible into a few short days, to burn away the memory of the long, empty months at sea. You watch as the profits of your raid are consumed in a bonfire of hedonism. The men don't think about the future. They don't save their winnings. The very concept of saving is alien to them. Their lives are so short, so uncertain, that the future is an abstract concept. The only thing that is real is the present moment, the feel of the rum burning its way down your throat, the sound of a drunken shanty sung under a sky full of stars. This is the great, tragic flaw in the pirate economy. They are brilliant at acquiring wealth and terrible at keeping it. They are not entrepreneurs building a business. They are lottery winners, blowing their entire fortune in a single glorious weekend. They will drink and feast until the last of the captured provisions are gone. Then, hungover, broke, and sick, they will stumble back onto their ship and set sail once more to begin the cycle of deprivation and violence all over again. You look at the treasure you have won, a bolt of wool you can maybe sell in the next port, a new pair of shoes taken from a terrified merchant sailor, a splitting headache from too much cheap wine. You are richer than you were yesterday, but you are no closer to being free. The treasure map is a lie. The real pirate treasure is not something you bury. It is something you consume as quickly and as recklessly as possible in a desperate, fleeting attempt to feel alive before the sea or the gallows claims you. This brief, chaotic carnival is the only paradise you will ever know, and it is always, always temporary. The myth of the pirate is built on the thrill of the fight. We imagine epic broadsides, cannons roaring, ships locked in a deadly embrace, men swinging from the rigging with cutlasses clenched in their teeth. It is the heart of the adventure, the moment of ultimate swashbuckling glory. The reality, as always, is a much messier, more frightening, and often more tedious affair. The primary job of a pirate is not to fight. It is to avoid fighting at all costs. A battle is a risky, unpredictable business. Ships can be damaged, sometimes beyond repair. Cargo can be lost, and most importantly, men can be killed or wounded. A dead pirate earns no share of the profits. A wounded pirate is a drain on the ship's limited resources. A smart pirate captain knows that the most successful attack is one that is over before it begins. Your ship, a captured merchant sloop that has been refitted for speed and maneuverability, is not a battleship. You cannot stand and trade broadsides with a naval frigate. Your strength lies in surprise, speed, and terror. The hunt for a prize is a game of patience, a long, drawn-out process of observation and calculation. You might spend weeks patrolling a known shipping lane, a tiny speck on a vast, empty ocean, your eyes scanning the horizon for the telltale sign of a sail. This is the true nature of your work. 9 parts soul-crushing boredom to 1 part adrenaline-fueled chaos. You stand your watch, you mend your sails, you swab the decks, and you wait. The days bleed into one another, a monotonous cycle of sun and sea. The initial excitement of the pirate life has long since worn off, replaced by the familiar grinding routine of the sailor. The only difference is the flag you fly and the ever-present knowledge that you are being hunted. When a potential target is finally spotted, a complex calculus begins. Is it a merchant ship or a naval vessel? How many guns does it carry? Is it sailing alone or in a convoy? Is it fast or slow? A mistake in this assessment can be fatal. Attacking a well-armed East Indiaman, or heaven forbid, a naval ship of the line, your suicide. Your ideal target is a lone, slow, lightly armed merchantman, preferably one that looks like it's been at sea for a while, its crew likely weakened by sickness and fatigue. Once a target is selected, the chase begins. This is not a dramatic, high-speed pursuit. It is a slow, methodical game of angles and wind. It can take hours, sometimes an entire day, to close the distance. The tension on board is palpable. Men check the priming on their pistols. They sharpen their cutlasses. They whisper prayers to whatever god they still believe in. The moment of truth comes. When you are within cannon range, you raise the Jolly Roger. This is the moment of decision for the other ship. In most cases, it is enough. The sight of the black flag, the universal symbol of no quarter, is enough to break their will to fight. They know that pirates are desperate men with nothing to lose, and that they will fight with a savagery that no merchant crew can match. Surrender is the logical choice. But sometimes they choose to fight. The merchant captain might be unusually brave or foolish, or he might be carrying a cargo so valuable that he feels he has no choice. And then the brief, brutal reality of pirate combat is unleashed. Your ship's cannons are not for sinking the enemy. They are for disabling them. The first shots are aimed at the rigging, at the sails and masts. The goal is to cripple the other ship, to take away its ability to flee. You fire chain shot, 2 cannonballs linked by a chain, which is designed to scythe through ropes and splinter masts. You fire grape shot, a canvas bag filled with small iron balls, which is designed to sweep the enemy deck, to kill or maim as many of their crew as possible. The noise is apocalyptic. The roar of the cannons, the crack of splintering wood, the screams of the wounded. The air is filled with a thick, acrid cloud of black powder smoke, which chokes your lungs and blinds your eyes. You are not a professional gunner. You are a sailor who has been given a crash course in loading and firing a cannon. The work is hot, heavy, and dangerous. A misplaced spark can ignite the powder kegs, blowing your ship and everyone on it to kingdom come. If the enemy ship is not disabled by cannon fire, the final, terrifying phase begins. Boarding. You pull your ship alongside, and the grappling hooks are thrown. The 2 vessels are locked together, and then you go over the side, a screaming, desperate wave of humanity. This is not a choreographed duel. It is a chaotic, savage brawl in a confined space. You are armed with a cutlass, a pistol, and a collection of crude, improvised weapons like axes and boarding pikes. Your goal is not to disarm your opponent. It is to kill him as quickly and efficiently as possible. The fighting is close, personal, and horrifying. You can see the fear in your opponent's eyes. You can feel the spray of his blood on your face. You are fighting not for a king or a country, but for your own life and a share of the loot. The pirates' greatest advantage is their ferocity. They fight with a desperate, wild-eyed fury that terrifies their opponents. They are drunk on rum and adrenaline, and they know that defeat means the hangman's rope. This psychological edge is often enough to break the morale of a merchant crew who have little to gain and everything to lose. The fight is over in minutes. It ends when the enemy captain surrenders or when there is no one left to fight. The deck of the captured ship is a charnel house, littered with the dead and dying, the wood slick with blood. The adrenaline drains away, leaving you shaky, nauseous, and profoundly empty. You have won, but the victory tastes of gunpowder and bile. You look at the faces of your crewmates, their eyes wide and haunted. This is the price of your freedom. This is the bloody work that pays for your brief drunken carnivals. And you know with a sickening certainty that you will have to do it all over again. The golden age of piracy was a fire that burned incredibly brightly and incredibly briefly for a little over a decade, from roughly 1713 to the late 1720s. These floating republics of outlaws terrorized the trade routes of the Atlantic, but the empires they preyed upon were not going to tolerate this challenge to their authority forever. The state, that vast, organized machine of violence, began to fight back. The end did not come with a single decisive battle. It was a slow, methodical strangulation. The Royal Navy, freed from its wars with France and Spain, was able to devote its full attention to hunting pirates. Squadrons of fast, well-armed frigates were dispatched to the Caribbean and the coast of Africa with a single mission: to eradicate the pirate threat. You are no longer the hunter. You are the hunted. The open sea, which once represented a kind of freedom, now feels like a vast, empty prison. Every sail on the horizon is a potential enemy. The friendly ports where you could once sell your plunder and resupply are now closed to you. Governors who once turned a blind eye to your activities in exchange for a share of the profits are now offered huge bounties for your capture. The world is shrinking. The final act of your short, violent life will likely play out in one of two ways. The first is a battle at sea. A naval frigate, faster and more heavily armed than your small sloop, corners you. There is nowhere to run. Your captain, knowing that surrender means the gallows, decides to fight. Your desperate ferocity is no match for the disciplined, professional gunnery of the Navy. The frigate stands off at a distance, methodically pounding your ship to splinters with its long-range cannons. The deck becomes a slaughterhouse of flying wood and shrapnel. Your mainmast cracks and falls, leaving you dead in the water. The naval ship closes in, and the Marines in their crisp red coats board your vessel. The fight is brief. You are overwhelmed by superior numbers and discipline. You are taken in chains. The second, and perhaps more common, end is betrayal. The promise of a full pardon and a substantial reward is offered to any pirate who will turn on his crewmates. The democratic brotherhood, which was held together by mutual desperation and hatred of the outside world, begins to crumble under the pressure. The suspicion and paranoia that were always simmering beneath the surface now boil over. You look at the men you have sailed with, fought with, and drunk with, and you see potential traitors. The offer of a clean slate and a bag of gold is a powerful temptation for a man with no future. Many of the most famous pirate captains, including the infamous Blackbeard, were brought down not by the Navy, but by informers from within their own ranks. Either way, Your journey ends in the same place, a sweltering, rat-infested jail in Port Royal, Jamaica, or Charleston, South Carolina. Your trial is a swift, theatrical affair. There is no jury of your peers. You are tried by a Vice Admiralty court, presided over by naval officers and colonial officials, the very men who represent the system you rebelled against. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. You are found guilty of piracy and sentenced to hang. On the day of your execution, you are paraded through the streets of the town, a public spectacle designed to reinforce the power of the state. The crowds jeer and throw garbage at you. These are the same people who, just a few years ago, might have secretly bought your stolen goods or celebrated your defiance of authority. But now, you are a symbol of disorder, a monster to be purged. You are brought to the gallows, a crude wooden structure overlooking the harbor. You can see the ships at anchor, their masts like a forest of dead trees. You can smell the salt in the air. You are given a chance to say your last words. Some pirates, in this final moment, curse the king and the governor. Others offer sober warnings to the crowd about the dangers of a life of crime. Some, like the famous pirate William Fly, even criticize the hangman's technique, retying the noose around their own neck to ensure a quicker death. You say nothing. There is nothing left to say. You look out at the sea one last time. It was the source of your misery, your brief, violent freedom, and now, your end. The noose is placed around your neck, the cart is pulled away, and your short, brutal, and desperate life comes to an end, your body swinging in the breeze as a warning to all who might dare to raise the black flag again. The golden age is over. The state has won. The romantic myth, however, is just beginning. Behold the Colosseum. Even the name feels heavy, monumental. It's more than a building. It's an icon, a symbol of a civilization so powerful, so audacious, that it could bend stone and shape history to its will. When we think of Rome, we think of this, a vast elliptical skeleton of arches and stone rising against an Italian sky. It is the ultimate testament to the glory of the Roman Empire, a masterpiece of engineering, a theater of epic spectacles, and the grandest stadium the world had ever seen. We see the majestic ruin, and we imagine the spectacle, gleaming gladiators, roaring crowds, the emperor's thumb turning up or down. It's a vision of power, order, and brutal, magnificent entertainment. But this grand facade, this architectural sermon on the permanence of empire, hides a much darker, more complex, and infinitely more fascinating truth. The Colosseum wasn't just a stage for death. It was a highly sophisticated machine, an engine of social control, and a microcosm of the entire Roman world. Its true genius and its true horror lay not in what the crowds could see, but in the dark, teeming, and terrifying world that existed just beneath their feet. Tonight, we're not just admiring the view from the cheap seats. We're going backstage. We're descending into the labyrinthine guts of the Colosseum to ask what it really took to produce the greatest and deadliest show on earth. Because, let me tell you, the roar of the crowd was nothing compared to the symphony of chaos that played out in the shadows below. So, before the games begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, find a comfortable seat, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Welcome to the Flavian Amphitheater, the beating, bloody heart of Rome, where the spectacle on the sand was only half the story. You are a provincial, a young man from a dusty town in Hispania, and you have just arrived in Rome for the first time. The city is an overwhelming multi-sensory assault. It's a sprawling, chaotic metropolis of a million souls, a labyrinth of narrow, winding streets, towering apartment blocks, and opulent marble temples. It is the capital of the world, and it hums with a raw, terrifying, and intoxicating energy. But all of it, every street, every temple, every forum, exists in the shadow of one colossal structure. You see it long before you reach it, a man-made mountain of travertine and brick that dominates the skyline. As you get closer, its scale becomes incomprehensible. It's not just big, it's elemental. It feels less like a building and more like a geological formation. 80 separate entrances, marked by Roman numerals carved above the arches. 4 massive tiers of seating, rising to a height of over 150 feet. The sheer relentless repetition of the arches creates a sense of rhythm and power, a visual representation of the order and might of the Roman state. You join the massive river of people flowing towards the entrance, tens of thousands of them, from every walk of life, senators in their white, purple-bordered togas, wealthy merchants in fine linen, common plebeians in their rough wool tunics, soldiers, slaves, and foreigners. The crowd is a living cross-section of the entire empire, all drawn here by the same magnetic pull, the promise of the games. Your ticket is a small clay shard, a tessera, with a number inscribed on it. This number corresponds to one of the entrance arches and directs you to your designated seating section. The system is a miracle of crowd control, a testament to Roman logistical genius. Even with a capacity of over 50,000 people, the entire stadium can be filled in a matter of minutes, each person guided to their precise, socially mandated place. You find your seat high up in the 4th tier, the Summa Cavea, the section reserved for the poor, the slaves, and the women. The cheap seats. From up here, the arena floor looks distant, a pale, sand-covered oval at the bottom of a vast canyon of humanity. But the view of the crowd is breathtaking. You can see the entire social hierarchy of Rome laid out before you. The lowest tier, right next to the arena, is reserved for the emperor, the senators, and the Vestal virgins. Above them sit the equestrians, the wealthy business class. Above them, the ordinary Roman citizens. And then there is you, and the rest of the teeming anonymous mass, perched at the very top, under the shade of the giant retractable awning, the velarium, that protects the crowd from the brutal Roman sun. The air is electric with anticipation. The murmur of 50,000 voices creates a low, constant hum, the sound of a giant beehive. Vendors move through the stands, selling wine, sausages, and cushions. The atmosphere is not one of solemnity. It is a festival, a carnival, a massive citywide party. And then a hush falls over the crowd. The emperor and his retinue enter the imperial box. The games are about to begin. You lean forward, your heart pounding, ready to witness the spectacle you have heard about your entire life. You think you are looking at the main event. You have no idea that the real show, the one that makes all this possible, is happening in a dark subterranean world directly beneath the sand you're staring at. Beneath the sun-drenched, blood-soaked sand of the arena floor lies another world. A hidden 2-story labyrinth of corridors, chambers, and vertical shafts known as the hypogeum. This is the backstage, the engine room, the secret heart of the Colosseum. It is a place of darkness, noise, and organized chaos, a stark, functional underworld that stands in direct contrast to the architectural grandeur of the structure above. If the Colosseum is a temple to imperial power, the hypogeum is its grimy, sweating, and terrifying boiler room. As a spectator in the stands, you are completely unaware of its existence. All you see is a flat, sandy surface, but this surface is actually a wooden floor, covered in a thick layer of sand to absorb blood. And this floor is full of trapdoors, hidden elevators, and secret passages, all leading down into the darkness below. The hypogeum is what gives the games their magic, their element of shocking, almost supernatural surprise. One moment, the arena is empty. The next, a snarling lion appears as if from the earth itself, shot upwards into the light on a hidden lift. Let's descend into that darkness. Imagine you are a slave, a missionarius, one of the hundreds of men who work in this subterranean maze. Your world is one of perpetual twilight, lit by the flickering, smoky light of oil lamps. The air is thick and heavy, a foul mixture of animal stench, human sweat, the metallic tang of blood seeping down from the floor above, and the ever-present choking dust. The noise is a constant, deafening cacophony. The roaring of lions, the trumpeting of elephants, the snarling of bears, the clanking of chains, and the shouts of men giving orders in a dozen different languages. Your job is to operate the machinery that makes the spectacle possible. The hypogeum is a complex system of elevators and hoists, powered by ropes, pulleys, and the brute strength of hundreds of slaves like you. There are over 30 of these lifts, capable of raising everything from a single gladiator to a fully grown elephant to the arena floor. The system is a masterpiece of engineering, a complex ballet of counterweights and capstans. Your work is grueling, repetitive, and incredibly dangerous. A slipped rope can send a multi-ton cage crashing down, crushing anyone beneath it. A moment's inattention can mean the difference between a perfectly timed entrance and a disastrous bloody failure. Down here, you are in close proximity to the two main types of performers, the beasts and the men. In one section of the labyrinth are the animal cages. The Roman Empire, in its insatiable hunger for novelty, has scoured the known world for exotic and deadly creatures. There are lions from North Africa, tigers from Parthia, bears from Caledonia, crocodiles from the Nile, and rhinos from Numidia. These animals are not treated as noble creatures. They are props, living special effects. They are kept in cramped, dark cages, often starved, and deliberately provoked to make them more ferocious when they are finally released into the arena. The fear and rage of these creatures is a palpable force, a constant, low-frequency hum of terror that permeates the very stone of the hypogeum. In another section are the holding cells for the human performers, the gladiators. You see them in the moments before they are sent up to fight. They are not the marble-muscled heroes of sculpture. They are a diverse and desperate collection of slaves, prisoners of war, and condemned criminals. Some are stoic, their faces grim and resigned. Others are trembling with fear. Some pray to their gods. Others sharpen their weapons with a cold, focused intensity. You see the famous gladiators, the champions who have survived dozens of fights, their bodies a roadmap of scars. They are the superstars of this world, but down here in the moments before the lift ascends, they are just men, facing a probable and violent death. You also see the others, the Noxi, the condemned criminals who are sentenced to death at Bestius to be killed by wild beasts. They are not warriors. They are often unarmed, sometimes tied to stakes, sent up into the arena as helpless fodder for the morning's beast hunts. Their terror is the most profound and pitiful of all. They are not here to fight. They are here to die for the entertainment of the crowd. The hypogeum is a factory floor for the production of death. Everything is timed to perfection. The editor, the producer of the games, gives his commands from a box overlooking the arena. His orders are relayed down into the hypogeum, where a complex system of signals, bells, horns, and shouted commands coordinates the chaos. A trapdoor opens. Your team of slaves strains at the capstan, hoisting a cage containing 2 starving bears into the light. A few minutes later, another signal. You lower a platform to retrieve the bloody carcasses. The sand on the arena floor is raked over the blood, and the stage is set for the next act. This is the relentless, brutal rhythm of your life, hoisting death up, lowering death down. All day, you work in this noisy, stinking, and terrifying underworld, a nameless, faceless cog in a machine designed to turn life into a spectacle. You never see the sun. You never hear the roar of the crowd as a cheer, only as a distant, muffled rumble that vibrates through the stone above you. You are the hidden foundation upon which the glory of Rome is built, and your world is a perfect, self-contained hell, engineered with the same precision and genius as the grand sunlit arches above. Why did Rome build this colossal monument to death? Why did 50,000 people, day after day, flock to watch men and animals slaughter each other in the most gruesome ways imaginable? The answer is simple and profoundly cynical. The Colosseum was not primarily for entertainment. It was for control. It was the centerpiece of a deliberate and highly effective state policy known as panem et circenses, bread and circuses. The concept was articulated by the poet Juvenal, but it was perfected by the Roman emperors. The idea was that a restless, potentially rebellious urban population could be kept docile and compliant by providing them with 2 things: free food and spectacular, free entertainment. The grain dole, the annona, fed their stomachs. The games in the Colosseum fed their appetite for spectacle and violence, distracting them from their own poverty, from the political corruption of the ruling class, and from the vast, grinding inequalities of Roman society. The games were not just a distraction. They were a powerful form of propaganda, a recurring public lesson in the core values of the Roman state. Every event in the arena was a carefully choreographed morality play. The beast hunts, the Venetianas, which took place in the morning, were a demonstration of Rome's dominion over the natural world by importing exotic and terrifying creatures from the farthest corners of the empire and slaughtering them in the heart of the capital. Rome was symbolically reenacting its conquest of the world. It was a message to the people. Just as we have tamed these wild beasts, so too have we tamed the wild barbarian lands from which they came. Nature, in all its chaos, has been subjugated by Roman order. The midday executions, the meridiani, were the most naked and brutal display of state power. Condemned criminals, prisoners of war, and religious undesirables, like the early Christians, were executed in a variety of gruesome and theatrical ways. They were burned alive, crucified, or most famously, thrown to the beasts. These were not simple executions. They were public rituals of purification, designed to reinforce the absolute authority of Roman law. The message was unambiguous. This is what happens to the enemies of Rome. This is what happens to those who defy the emperor and the gods. The state has the power of life and death, and it will exercise that power publicly, for all to see. It was a lesson in obedience, written in blood. And then, in the afternoon, came the main event, the gladiatorial contests. These were the most popular and the most ideologically complex of all the spectacles. The gladiator was a paradoxical figure. He was a slave, a man at the absolute bottom of the social hierarchy. Yet, if he fought well, he could achieve a level of fame and adoration that rivaled that of a modern sports star. He was both despised as an outcast and admired as a paragon of Roman virtue. The gladiatorial combat was a lesson in courage, discipline, and the proper way to face death. A good gladiator did not just win, he demonstrated virtus, the Roman ideal of martial courage. He fought bravely, he followed the rules, and if he was defeated, he was expected to accept his death with a stoic, unflinching dignity. The crowd would roar its approval, not just for a killing blow, but for a good death. This was a way of conditioning the Roman people, of teaching them to admire martial values and to face their own mortality with the kind of courage that had built the empire. The emperor himself played a crucial role in this theater of power. His presence at the games was a form of public relations, a way of connecting with his people on a visceral level. He was not just an observer, he was the ultimate arbiter. It was often his decision, guided by the mood of the crowd, whether a defeated gladiator would be spared or killed. By giving the people this illusion of participation, this shared power of life and death, he reinforced their loyalty and their sense of connection to him. He was not just their ruler, he was their fellow spectator, the ultimate fan. The Colosseum, therefore, was far more than a stadium. It was a political tool, a social safety valve, and a classroom for imperial ideology. It took the messy, chaotic, and often unjust realities of Roman power, conquest, execution, slavery, and repackaged them as thrilling, morally instructive entertainment. It anesthetized the population, turning potential discontent into patriotic fervor. It was the most brilliant and brutal form of mass media ever invented, a spectacle so powerful that it could make an entire population forget their troubles and cheer for the very system that oppressed them. The bread might fill their stomachs for a day, but the circus would occupy their minds for a lifetime. You are not just a spectator at the Colosseum. You are a performer in a vast, unscripted drama. The moment you take your seat, you become part of the spectacle, a single voice in a 50,000-person choir that will, over the course of the day, become the most powerful entity in Rome. The emperor may be the producer of the games, but the crowd, the populus Romanus, is the star. From your perch, high in the cheap seats, you look down at the stratified sea of humanity. The seating arrangement, the cavea, is a perfect, unsparing map of the Roman social order. It is a lesson in power, written in the language of proximity. The closer you are to the action, the more important you are. Down at the very bottom, on marble thrones, so close to the arena wall they could be spattered with blood, sit the senators, the priests, and the Vestal virgins, the moral and political pillars of the state. Above them, in the first major tier, are the equites, the wealthy knights and businessmen who are the engine of the Roman economy. Above them, in the second tier, sit the plebs, the ordinary male citizens of Rome, the backbone of the city. And then there is your section, the summa cavea, right at the top, a noisy, crowded, and distinctly less fragrant section for the non-citizens, the slaves, the poor, and the women. The architecture itself is a constant, silent reminder of your place in the world. But this rigid hierarchy dissolves in the heat of the spectacle. When the games begin, these thousands of disparate individuals coalesce into a single, unified consciousness. A mob, a beast with 50,000 mouths and one collective, primal will. And this beast is hungry. It craves spectacle. It craves violence, and it craves the illusion of power. The emperor understands this. He knows that his own power, his own popularity, is directly tied to his ability to please this beast. He watches the crowd as much as he watches the arena. Their cheers, their boos, their rhythmic chants are a real-time poll, a raw, unfiltered expression of public opinion. A popular gladiator will be met with a deafening roar of approval. A cowardly or clumsy fighter will be showered with insults and curses. The crowd is not a passive audience. It is an active, vocal, and often fickle judge. The most dramatic expression of this power comes at the moment of a gladiator's defeat. The loser, wounded and disarmed, raises a single finger, an appeal for missio, for mercy. The decision now rests with the editor of the games, usually the emperor himself. But he will not make this decision alone. He turns to the crowd, and the beast finds its voice. Those who want the gladiator to be spared wave handkerchiefs or raise their thumbs, though the exact gesture is still debated by historians. The intent is clear. Those who want him to die turn their thumbs down and scream, "Igula, slay him." For this one fleeting moment, you, the spectator, hold the power of life and death in your hands. Your voice, your gesture, combined with thousands of others, can save a man's life or condemn him to a swift, bloody end. It is an intoxicating, godlike power, a heady drug that the state administers to its people to keep them addicted. By giving you this small theatrical taste of absolute authority, the emperor makes you a complicit partner in the brutality of the games. You are no longer just watching the violence, you are ordering it. But the crowd is not just a collection of bloodthirsty savages, it is a complex and sophisticated organism. There are factions, fan clubs for different gladiators or gladiatorial schools. Much like modern sports teams, wagers are made, arguments break out. The crowd is a living, breathing part of the show, its reactions as much a part of the entertainment as the combat itself. They are not just watching death, they are participating in a complex social ritual that reaffirms their identity as Romans, their connection to the emperor, and their place at the center of the world. They are the Roman people, and this bloody arena is their sacred temple, the place where they come to worship at the altar of their own power. The grand spectacle of the Colosseum, with its roaring crowds and bleeding gladiators, is only the final, glorious product of a vast and complex industry. Behind the scenes, stretching from the farthest corners of the empire to the dark corridors of the hypogeum, lies a massive, highly organized and brutally efficient supply chain dedicated to the production of death. The games are not just a ritual, they are a business, and a very profitable one at that. The industry begins in the wild. The demand for exotic animals is insatiable, and a vast network of hunters, trappers, and traders is employed to meet it. Legions of Roman soldiers stationed in Africa and the Near East are often tasked with capturing animals as a form of tribute. Entire villages in Numidia might be conscripted to drive thousands of gazelles into vast netted enclosures. Specialized hunters, the venators, risk their lives in the jungles of Parthia and the forests of Germania to capture tigers, bears, and boars. The process is wasteful and cruel. For every animal that makes it to Rome alive, 10 die along the way, from stress, from injury, from the appalling conditions of their transport in cramped wooden crates on rocking ships. The environmental impact is devastating. North Africa, which was once teeming with elephants, lions, and crocodiles, is hunted to near extinction to supply the arenas of the empire. Once the animals arrive in Rome, they become valuable commodities, bought and sold by agents known as mangones. They are kept in imperial menageries, the vivaria, on the outskirts of the city before being transported to the hypogeum in the days leading up to the games. The cost is enormous, a clear demonstration of the emperor's wealth and the vast reach of his empire. The human supply chain is just as complex. Gladiators are sourced from several main pools. The largest is prisoners of war. After a successful military campaign, entire legions of captured soldiers, Gauls, Germans, Dacians, are marched back to Rome in chains. They are strong, already trained in combat, and utterly expendable. They are sold to a lanista, the owner and trainer of a gladiatorial school, a ludus. Another source is slaves. Any slave who is particularly strong, troublesome, or simply unlucky can be sold to a ludus. It is often a death sentence, but for some, it offers a slim chance at a life that is marginally better than the slow death of the mines or the galleys. Finally, there are the volunteers, the octorati. These are free Roman citizens who, due to debt, disgrace, or a thirst for fame, willingly sign a contract to become gladiators. They trade their freedom and their social standing for a chance at glory and wealth, a desperate gamble in a society with little social mobility. Life in the ludus is a brutal but highly disciplined affair. It is part prison, part military barracks, part elite training facility. The gladiators are housed in cells, fed a high-carbohydrate diet of barley and beans to build up a layer of fat that will protect their vital organs from superficial cuts and subjected to a relentless training regimen. They are taught by retired champions, the doctors, each specializing in a particular fighting style, the retiarius with his net and trident, the murmillo with his heavy shield and sword, the thraex with his curved dagger. The training is grueling and often fatal. A man can die in the training yard long before he ever sets foot in the arena. The lanista is the businessman at the heart of this industry. He is a despised figure in Roman society, seen as a pimp who profits from death, but he is also a shrewd investor. He buys his human stock, invests heavily in their training and medical care. The best doctors in Rome often worked for the gladiatorial schools, as they offered unparalleled experience in trauma surgery, and then rents them out to the editor of the games for a handsome fee. A star gladiator, a champion who has survived dozens of fights, is a huge financial asset worth a fortune. His death in the arena is a significant business loss. Finally, there is the cleanup crew. After a day of slaughter, the arena floor is a gruesome landscape of bodies, both human and animal. A special group of arena attendants, dressed as Charon, the mythical ferryman of the underworld, or Mercury, the messenger god, enter the arena. They poke the bodies of the fallen gladiators with hot irons to ensure they are truly dead. Then, the bodies are dragged out through a special gate known as the Porta Libitinaria, the Gate of Death. The carcasses of the animals are harvested for their meat, which is often distributed to the poor or sold in the city's markets. The sand is raked over the bloodstains, a fresh layer is laid down, and the arena is made ready for the next day's games. From the trapper in the African savannah to the lanista in his ludus, from the slave in the hypogeum to the attendant dragging a corpse from the sand, the Colosseum is the final point in a vast, interconnected industry. It is a machine that requires a constant supply of fresh bodies. It is a business where the raw material is life, and the final product is a carefully orchestrated, state-sponsored spectacle of death. The glory of the arena is built on a foundation of unimaginable suffering, a global network of exploitation that makes the spectacle possible. The roar of the crowd is the sound of a dividend being paid, a return on an investment made in blood. The last gladiator has fallen. The final, desperate roar of a dying lion has faded into silence. The sun dips below the western hills, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and blood orange. The 50,000 spectators, their hunger for spectacle sated for another day, begin to file out of the great stone amphitheater. The noise of the crowd recedes, replaced by the soft, mournful sigh of the evening wind whispering through the empty arches. The Colosseum falls silent. In this silence, the true nature of the place becomes clear. The ghosts are here. Not just the ghosts of the thousands of men and tens of thousands of animals who died on the sand, but the ghost of the civilization that built it. The Colosseum is not just a ruin, it is the most complete and honest self-portrait of the Roman Empire ever created. It is a portrait of their genius, their unparalleled mastery of engineering, logistics, and architecture is on display in every perfectly cut stone, every soaring arch. The ability to build a structure of this scale, to fill and empty it with such efficiency, to operate the complex machinery of the hypogeum, it is the work of a civilization at the absolute peak of its technical and organizational powers. It is also a portrait of their power. The sheer, overwhelming scale of the building is a statement of dominance, a declaration that Rome could command not just legions of men, but mountains of stone. The exotic animals dragged from the farthest corners of the earth are a living map of their imperial reach. The Colosseum was a constant physical reminder to every citizen and every visitor that they were standing at the center of the world and that the power of Rome was absolute and inescapable. But most of all, it is a portrait of their cruelty, not the hot-blooded, chaotic cruelty of a barbarian horde, but a cold, calculated, and highly organized cruelty, administered as a form of public policy. It is the cruelty of a civilization that could turn the suffering and death of living beings into a form of entertainment, a tool of social control, and a profitable business. The Colosseum reveals the dark, rotten core at the heart of the Roman soul, a profound moral indifference, a desensitization to violence so complete that it became a form of civic celebration. Tonight, as you stand before this silent, moonlit ruin, you can feel the echoes of that world. You can almost hear the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the final, gasping breath of a fallen gladiator. The building is no longer a monument to glory. It is a monument to a paradox that a civilization can be simultaneously so brilliant and so monstrous, so creative and so destructive. It is a testament to the enduring human capacity to build wonders and to use those wonders for the most terrible of purposes. The Colosseum stands as a permanent, silent warning, a reminder that the line between civilization and barbarism is always thinner than we think, and that the roar of the crowd can all too easily drown out the whispers of conscience. It asks us a question that echoes down through the centuries. What spectacles do we demand? What violence do we choose to watch? And what truths are we willing to ignore for the sake of a good show? And now, the games are over. The crowd has gone home. The arena is empty. All that is left is the silence and the stones and the ghosts. It's time to let the echoes fade, to let the darkness settle, to close your eyes and find the quiet peace of your own world. Sleep now. Sleep tight. The roar of the past is over. All that is left is the soft, gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Sleep.